Hey everybody, Bob Gager from Adobe here, and we're going to have a Elements Live session where we're going to explore Elements, look at one of our guided edits that we have in the new release. I'm going to show you how to use that. It's called the Painterly Guided Edit. Going to show you how that works, going to show you some tips and tricks, maybe a little couple keyboard shortcuts to make life a little bit easier inside of Elements. And help you get really creative with our product. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to shift over to Photoshop Elements. This is version 2018, which is the very latest version. And I'm going to talk about the Painterly Guided Edit. Oops, that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to keep this going. Thanks. If you are attending live, thanks for taking the time. Please post any questions you have as comments on the Facebook posting. I'll be able to see those live. If I happen to notice them while I'm in the middle of the demo, I'll answer them right away, but we're going to save some time for Q&A afterwards to make sure we get all your questions answered. All right, let's go ahead and get started with Painterly. I've got a photo open here. This is my dog Penny. From last Sunday. We took Penny to the beach locally here in California. Beautiful day at the beach. She had a blast running and chasing other dogs and trying to pick up sticks that were bigger than her. She actually never got this one open. But we're going to take this photo, which I really love, and turn it into more of a piece of art using the Painterly Guided Edit. Up across the top, oops, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. Here we go. Up across the top in the Photoshop Elements Editor are the three different editing modes. There's quick, there's guided, and there's expert. And it starts off in quick. You're probably familiar with that. If you're a more advanced user, you may have explored expert a little bit. But today I want to talk about this one right in the middle called guided. And guided edits are built-in tutorials that help us achieve really interesting and creative results without really needing to know what we're doing. They walk us step by step through how to get those results. And really guide us along the way, hence the name Guided Edits. And there's a whole bunch of them in here, and they're nicely organized into categories. There's some basic guided edits, some guided edits around color, adjusting color in your photos, some guided edits around messing with different black and white effects, a bunch of fun edits, which are a bit more creative, special edits, which are really kind of special purpose things like replacing backgrounds or perfecting portraits. And then a category we call photo merge, which is all about blending multiple photos together. But today we're going to work in the fun edits category because this one right here is Painterly. And Painterly lets me take any photo and embellish it a little bit with some effects that make it feel like it's a painting. So go ahead and switch into the fun edits category of guided edits. Come down here and just click on Painterly. And Painterly is going to open up, show you the image that you have open. And then over on the right here, you can see we have step-by-step instructions on how to create the effect. And it's pretty simple. Step one is just clicking this button to select the paintbrush. You can see our photo has been toned back a little bit. We have some presets for different styles of brushes. I like the bold strokes one to start with. And just bring your mouse over top of the main subject of your photo and click. And you can see with that single click, we've sort of revealed part of Penny with the rest of the photo around the outside still remaining kind of faded out. So you can click multiple times to reveal the subject of your photo. I find it creates much better results if we adjust the brush angle. So this spot right here, this little control lets us change the angle of the brush. If I just sort of click where I want it now, instead of at 0 degrees, I'm at something different. And you can see now my brush, I'll hold it over here and over on the left, is just at a different angle. Or if I just click here again, it's now at a different angle. So a real trick in getting good results in this guided edit is sort of some random variety. There's no kind of prescribed this is the right angle for any particular photo, but just creating a bit of randomness is what really kind of gives you some interesting results. You can also get randomness by picking a different brush, so you can mix and match the brushes. Instead of bold strokes, maybe I'll pick rough bristles. And that's sort of a completely different shaped brush. And again, I can click around the edges and now get some kind of different edge treatment with the rough bristles brush. I can also change the size of the brush. If I wanted it small for some reason, I can do that, or bigger, or the opacity. If I don't maybe want it completely clear, I can lower the opacity and get some interesting effects around the edges by partially revealing the image underneath. So play around with the different brushes. If you make a mistake, that's what this show hide is all about. If I click over to show, it will actually show the image. If I click on hide, it will hide the image when I click. Let me turn my opacity back up. So if I kind of click too much, right, I can cover Penny's face back up here. If I wanted to do such a thing, of course, that's not what I want to do. Go back to show and maybe click around and get her face back so we can see her. Okay, so that's step one, painting on sort of the brush effect of my image. I can then scroll down to step two, and I can pick a canvas color. And the canvas color is sort of the color of what's outside the main area of my image. I can pick black if that's what I wanted. I don't particularly like that with this photo, but black looks good on other photos. It really depends on the subject. I can pick white, kind of get that effect, or what I often try and do is use this select custom color button. And what that does is gives me a little eyedropper. Hopefully you can see my mouse here is a little eyedropper, and I can click anywhere on my photo and change the background to the color that I click on. So this is a great way of picking up the colors in your photo and actually using them as that border color. So maybe, you know, if we wanted Penny's tongue, there's some pink in her tongue, we could do that. Or maybe a light brown actually is what I want to kind of do. So kind of find a yellowy brown. If I hold my mouse button down and just move this eyedropper, you can see it's sampling the color underneath there, and I can just get around to get the exact color I want. So I'm going to pick something like that as my border color or canvas color. I'm going to scroll down to step three, and actually I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so we can see better what's going on with step three. Step three is about adding some texture to my canvas. So I go ahead and click on the texture button, and there's 6 choices that I can pick from. And I can just click on them and see what it looks like. So you can see, actually let me zoom in a little more maybe so we can really get a good look at what's going on. So you can see this is adding one of those textures to that sort of light brownish yellowy border that we have, not adding the texture to the main part of the image. And so you can play around, find out which one you like. I like this one a lot. It's a little harder to see probably over the screen, but it's kind of a modeled paint look. Or maybe this one, this is kind of a canvasy look. Once you find the texture you like, you can slide this opacity slider to make it feel a little stronger or a little less strong. So play around with this, try the different textures, see which one you like, slide the opacity slider to get the amount of texture that you're interested in. And then finally what we can do is add in step 4 an effect for our photo. And I'll stay zoomed in here so we can see the effect nicely. And again, it's as simple as just clicking on these little preset icons. And Photoshop Elements will go ahead and apply that effect to my photo. In this case, it's the dry brush effect. So we've got kind of a really artistic look to the photo with the dry brush effect. We have one called Paint Daubs. This is a different effect. So go ahead and click the different effects, see which one you like. For this photo, I actually like the rough pastels effect. So I'll go ahead and click that, let Photoshop Elements apply it to my image. And it kind of makes my image look like it's painted on canvas as well. Let me double click my hand over here on the left. And if I double click the hand, it'll zoom all the way back out so we can see the entire photo. If I double click the magnifying glass, it'll zoom in a 1-to-1 ratio. So that's a shortcut that's really nice to kind of zoom in and zoom out to get a feel for what your photo is looking like. Once you get the painterly effect, let's go back out, kind of done here. You go ahead and click next down in the bottom right. And then you have a couple of options of where you might want to go from here. I'm going to not save it at this point. I'm going to continue editing in that quick edit mode I mentioned earlier, because there's a couple cool things that we can do here as well. But before I do that, that's kind of the the basic painterly guided edit and gives you this kind of nice result. I like printing these out on like a canvas print and putting them up on my wall. It really is a nice piece of wall art that I can enjoy later. And I've been creative with it with just those couple steps inside the painterly guided edit. But before I do a few more things, I just wanted to check to see if there are any questions at this point that I might be able to answer. How can I do that on Photoshop Edit? I think you mean the full version of Photoshop. One of the big differences that we have with Photoshop Elements versus Photoshop is these guided edits. So certainly the technique is still possible in Photoshop, but you need to know about layers and masks and different brushes and textures, and it's a bit more complicated because Photoshop doesn't have these guided edits. So you can achieve the same result, but telling you how to do that is a little out of the scope of this session. What we really wanted to do is show you how easy it is inside the Photoshop Elements guided edit. Let's see, David's asking about, do these run as actions? Yeah, sounds like you're familiar with actions in Photoshop Elements. These use the actions capability under the covers to achieve the results, but they're not actions that you could export and put in Photoshop, for instance, or use somewhere else. They're sort of built into the product. But yeah, under the covers, there's a lot of action technology that's being brought to life there. All right, let's switch back to Photoshop Elements. So I'm in the quick edit mode. One of the things that you might want to do is after you apply the painterly guided edit effect to your photo, you might want to crop it. So the crop tool over here on the left lets me do that. Depending upon the photo, there may be a different aspect ratio I might want to choose. And this little pull down right here lets me, there we go, this one, there we go. This little pull down in the crop tool lets me pick different aspect ratios. And I'm kind of into square prints these days, so I'll just pick 5x5. And you can move this around and make it any size you want. It's not just 5 inches by 5 inches. It's sort of any size you want, but it starts off with a 5x5. So you can move that around, get your image centered or positioned however you might like it in whatever crop size you want. And then just go ahead and click the green check mark that's right here to accept those changes. And so now I've got a nice square photo that I can print out on canvas and have it look pretty nice hanging on my wall. There are other things I could do. Let me undo the crop. So I'm just going to click the undo button right down here and get back to the pre-cropped version. Down here in the bottom right corner, there's some nice things that I could bring to life as well. Apply more effects, apply more textures or frames. We've got a bunch of built-in frames. In quick mode, we show you the 10 most popular frames. And applying a frame to your photo is as simple as clicking on the thumbnail as well. And Photoshop Elements will go ahead and apply that frame to your photo, which is kind of cool. It gives it sort of that even extra artistic flair, if you will. If you don't like one of the 10 frames that we've chosen to put here in quick, switch over to Expert up top and click the very top layer. Now this is starting to get a little more complicated. All these layers are the work that the guided edit did under the covers for me. So that's one of the beauties of guided edits, is you don't have to get kind of bogged down by the complexity. But if you click this very top layer here and then switch to graphics, down here in the bottom right is a graphics button. There's a lot of graphics. If I switch to frames up here in the top, so by type and frames, I can click on any of these frames, double click, and it will apply it to my photo. So there are a ton of frames in here that you can click around and find the ones that you like. Another thing you might try and do is if instead of by type, switch to by word and search for a word. I'm going to search for dog and hit find because I happen to know that there's some frames that are appropriate for dogs. And here's one here. I'll double click that. And now we've got a frame around our photo, which is some dog bones, which kind of gives a different feel for it. Don't know if you like that or not. Maybe you just like the painterly effect and without a frame, or maybe you like the frame either way. I can also double click on the photo once it's in a frame use this little zoom slider to zoom in and reposition my photo so it's positioned appropriately. So a couple of tips and tricks to go above and beyond what the guided edit does, but that guided edit really helps you just kind of very quickly get to the painterly effect to create a photo that looks pretty interesting. So that's what I wanted to show you kind of in a pre-thought through way. Now the real question is, do you have any questions? So let's see, David, Olivia, can you add text to the image now that Painterly is applied? Yes, you can. Let me switch back. So either in quick or guided, I'll do it in quick just because it's a little easier. Over here on the left are the tools. The one that looks like a T is our text tool. I can click on the text tool. Down on the bottom, I'll click on tool options to open that up. Let's pick a color. Let's maybe make it just darker blue so it stands out a little bit. I can pick my size. I can pick my font and all that kind of stuff. And then just click where I want my text and type whatever I might want to type. Hit the green check mark, move it around, and sort of title my image, something like that. So yes, you can always add text to any photo at any time just by grabbing the text tool and clicking where you want your text and starting to type. Okay. David, when cropping to a listed size, is the original resolution used, or is that dependent on the setting in preferences? I have lost pixels per inch if I forgot to set it for each crop. Yeah, the way that is done in the crop tool, you can pick a different size, but very importantly, this little box right here, resolution, if you leave it blank, it will keep the original size of the photo. So I normally just leave it blank. If for some reason you want to resize the photo to a different resolution at the same time you're cropping, you can type in a number like 72 or 200 or 300 or whatever resolution you're after, and it will either reduce the size of your photo, or if you typed a huge number like 1,000, it would actually make your photo bigger. So that's the way you would resize if you wanted, but you're actually asking, I think, to not resize. Just make sure this little box right here is blank before you commit the crop. Okay. Looks like that's the end of the questions so far. Feel free to type one in if you have another question. So there you go. I love the painterly effect. It's one of my favorite things that we added recently. Really helps me. I'm not a artistic person, but I love getting creative with my photos. So it's a real nice way to sort of impart that artistic feel to your photo without having an artistic bone in your body to start with. So there you go. We will be posting this recording on the Facebook page, so you can always come back to it. Feel free at any time to come to our Facebook page and post a message if you've got more questions. I look at those typically a couple times a day and try and get back to people as quick as we can. So thanks very much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy Photoshop Elements. Take care. All right.